Just every once in a while, you may have to move it around to the speaker. Do you mind? Because it won't let me do a horizontal landscape without looking at settings. I want to charge us for it.
We'll go with the free vertical version now.
Excellent. Okay, we're good to go. Kick this off, Tracy. You on this side?
I'm going to do this as quickly as possible. My name is Tracy McGuire. I'm the founder and director of this project. So welcome to the gallery. This is a really important night and important talk for us because the subject matter is so adjacent to our mission. If you are not familiar with Tempest or you've never been here before, we are in our 16th year. We are a nonprofit organization that functions primarily as an exhibition space, but we lectures, workshops, we have an artist residency program, and we try to host as many special events in the arts as possible. I'm going to leave it really, really short and sweet like that. I told you I was going to be super fast. But I really am very grateful that we're doing this here. We love hosting events like this. Any of the other nonprofits or the organizations that have a similar directive in the community are our favorite people to host. So these are some of my favorite people. I'm going to let you do this. Yes? Cool. Thank you.
It's absolutely the most perfect venue and space to talk about visual arts and emerging opportunities for emerging artists, or as GFA has been saying, rising artists. I love that. So welcome, I'm Michelle Smith, Executive Director of Tampa Arts Alliance, and we're going to have just a very informal conversation. So, jot down your questions. We may call and accompany you for some feedback or thoughts as we go along, but so excited to have this stellar panel of advocates that have been nourishing the scene for a long time in various ways, but are very key in creating specifically grant opportunities for funding and nourishing the emerging art scene. So I will go ahead and start off with introduction. So starting at the very side there's Clay Hollenkamp. He began his career in arts administration in 2012 as a volunteer with Capitol Hill Arts Workshop in Washington, D.C. And is that CHAW or CHAW? CHAW. Over 6 years as a program manager, he produced art festivals, concerts, and theatrical productions with a particular focus on producing visual arts expeditions that showcase emerging and mid-career artists. After returning to the Tampa Bay area, Clay independently produced exhibitions from 2018 through 2021, and since 2021 he has volunteered with the Gasparilla Festival of the Arts Emerging Artists Program, helping to expand it so that participating artists not only gain the practical skills needed for a successful festival weekend, but also professional knowledge that sustains and grows their artistic careers. So we can't wait to hear more about that program. Welcome, Clay. Right next to him, we have Miss Martine Meredith Collier. That's very French. Miss Collier. She's the Division Director for the Arts Council of Hillsborough County with over 30 years experience all over the country in arts administration, nonprofit management, marketing, and development. She has provided services for performing and visual arts groups in educational institutions, municipalities, and professional consulting firms, as well as oversight for publicly funded grant programs at the local and state level. Prior to working with the Arts Council, she served as 6 years as President and CEO of Culture Works, which is a regional 8-county arts council in Dayton, Ohio. Other experience includes serving as Director of Development for Grantmakers in the Arts, Executive Director for Sarasota County Arts Council, and Community Arts Development Manager for the Georgia Council for the Arts. She holds a master's degree in arts administration from Goucher College. So thank you. Welcome. We very much look forward to hearing about the many grant programs and some other ideas that she's brought to talk about as well. Next, we have Neil Govioff, who I'm sure everybody here knows. He's the president of the Govioff Foundation, a private family foundation established by Neil's brother Howard Govioff in 2007, only months before his sudden death from lymphoma in March 2008. The Govioff Foundation carries out the intention of its founder to make the world a better place. They do this through grants, programs, and initiatives. The Govioff Foundation supports the arts in Tampa Bay, as well as civil liberties, human rights, and social justice organization. Neil serves on the board, and he's also the founding chair of the Tampa Arts Alliance. Yeah. And we have Jana, is it Rendina or Rendina?
Rendina Govioff.
Rendina Govioff, thank you for that. Jana is vice president of the Govioff Foundation, a private family foundation established by her late brother-in-law, Howard Govioff, in 2007. So I feel like Howard's your family. I love that. Thank you for that. Foundation's primary focus is on the arts community in Tampa Bay area, working with small organizations and specific programs with larger organizations as well. In 2021, the foundation added an individual artist grant opportunity through their micro grant program, which has been seeding all sorts of great stuff all over the Bay. Beyond funding the arts, the foundation's mission includes the areas of civil rights, civil liberties, human rights, and social justice. In a former life, she has her doctorate degree in educational measurement and evaluation as a psychometrician. Psychometrician. That is so cool. For a certification and licensure testing company. She is a native of Tampa, living in Tampa Bay area for her whole life. So she knows. I feel like that doesn't even really capture the talent and the hearts that are up here. So if you haven't had a chance to meet these fantastic folks, you get a sense of that tonight and encourage you to please keep in touch. These are people you want to know. Okay, so we'll jump right into questions. We'll start with Clay. Clay, will you tell us about the GFA Emerging Artists Program?
Yes, I will. So, Gasparilla Festival of the Arts every year has our Emerging Artists Program, and we invite 15 artists to participate. Each of those 15 artists will receive a free booth and tent space at the festival, so no booth fees to pay. Usually artists pay a booth fee to get a tent space, and plus you can try the tent too. And then also they will receive $425, what it is this year, to reimburse what they spent on building out the tent. So the idea is to make it work out so that the artist is able to come in without having to really put out anything. Some people will spend more than that amount on their tent, but you don't have to. And then in addition to the tent and the booth space and the reimbursement, we also have a mentoring program that has several different parts to it. We're always trying to add new interesting things, but this year it's going to include one meeting that will focus on how to be a festival artist, because traveling festival artist is a career all on its own. Some people find that they love doing it, some people find they don't. But so there's going to be one day, because our program culminates in an art festival, there's one day that specifically focuses on that. We will also talk about, we'll have another session that will introduce the artist to a gallerist, to an interior designer, so that you kind of learn how to connect with different ways to sell your art. We'll talk about tax concerns for artists, maybe a little bit of marketing for artists, and then an introduction to grant writing. So that's all part of our mentoring program that we do. The goal of the program is to prepare the 15 artists who take part, not just for the weekend, but so when they graduate from the program and they move on, they are learning more about what they need to be a professional artist and to take the next step in their career. So that's kind of just a little bit about the program. One thing that's super important, and I pulled this straight from the website, so I didn't say it wrong, is eligibility. Emerging is a term that's used differently with different programs. I've seen different emerging artist programs. Our definition is, to be considered eligible for the Emerging Artist Program, an artist must not have an established record as a professional artist showing their work in museums, major galleries, or major jury art exhibitions. The artist must not make more than 25% of their total income from the sale of their artwork. They must not be employed professionally as a visual artist working the medium they intend to present at the festival, and they must be 18 years old by the first day of the festival. A couple of points on those. Having an established record as a professional artist is obviously kind of, who knows what that is. If you have, way we kind of look at it is if you've been in festivals similar to Gasparilla Festival of the Arts, like Winter Park Sidewalk Art Festival over towards Orlando, or Coconut Grove, if you've been in the festivals of that era, of that size, we would say you're no longer emerging. If you have been in shows around the area here, even if they're juried shows, like at community centers, that sort of stuff, we don't consider that. You would still be eligible in that area. So like, as awesome as the shows at like Carrollwood Cultural Center are, fantastic organization, fantastic shows, that does not exclude you from being an emerging artist. So if you have any questions about that, again, I'll give you an email address in a minute to reach out. Another question people a lot of times have is the 25% of your total income. There are a lot of people who are have different backgrounds, come from different places. Like some people are maybe a homemaker, so the art they sell is 100% of their income. In that situation, we would still say you are eligible because assuming that there's somebody else in your home who's making it. So that still works out. That would still allow you to be eligible too. And then the last one, employed professionally as a visual artist in the medium you intend to present. The best way I always describe this is if you're a graphic designer, and you were to apply in the digital art category, we'd probably say that doesn't really count. You're not eligible to do that. But that same graphic designer who wanted to be a potter, come on, you're more than welcome. So that's kind of how we break those rules down. We know everybody has a different situation, and there are a million different variations on how these could apply to individual people's life or practice. So absolutely encourage anybody who's curious to reach out. And our Jessica just handed you guys some flyers. Our website's on there. It has all of these same information about the eligibility, and then also our email address is on there as well. It's emergingartists@gasparillarts.com. And I look forward to answering any questions you guys have later on. Or now, as you tell me.
I love that. So many questions actually. So you have a juror this year. Tell us more about what that process is like. Who's the review?
Sure. So this year our juror is Ryan McCullough. He is a teacher. He's an art teacher at the University of Tampa. And the way the process will work is after we close our application. So our application is open right now until November 30th. A few days after that, the application closes. We will give all the applications to Ryan. He'll go through and review all of them, and he'll make his selections. We will notify all of the artists, all of the applicants, whether they're accepted or not. Everybody's going to receive an email from us with the results of the jury process. That'll happen probably around December 18th, 19th, 20th, something like that. And yeah, so Ryan's job is going to be to review all of the applications and to put together a group of artists that based on his knowledge and experience are most deserving.
So if you get into the program, you can also boast that you've been in a jury exhibition, which is a big deal. What about the total value? So they get compensation for setting up the tent, but there's a lot of education regarding accounting, marketing, the interior design curriculum. What does that look like? Is it like a meeting every month leading up to this, or?
So after we notify people of the results of the jury process, that's gonna happen right before Christmas. So we're not gonna get involved in your holidays. We're gonna wait right until after the first of the year. And then between, say maybe the first few days of January and the festival, which occurs on the 28th of February and the first day of March 2026, during that 6-8 week period there, we'll have those 5 mentoring sessions will occur during that window. So it's going to be not one every week, but maybe one every week and a half, something along those lines. And we do them. There's one that's in person. It's the meeting with to learn about how to be a festival artist, and that actually occurs at Duncan McClellan Gallery over in St. Pete. Duncan's hosted us for years now, and he's very generous with his time, and he's got a lot of experience to share. So we'll actually have people come over there. However, we do make that online as well. We record it, we put it on Zoom, because sometimes our emerging artists come from across the country. Last year, I think the farthest one away was Oklahoma, but we've had people come from the West Coast, from Maine, all kinds of places. So we make sure that they are all available for every artist to take part in, and we'll have them online and on Zoom and recorded so that people can watch them later if they're not able to see them at the time they're happening.
So you have a footprint of at least 20,000 or is it 30,000 visitors over the weekend?
So every year we get right about 29 to 31,000 visitors. That's been the past 3 or 4 years who come over the 2 days. And we found that people pretty much peruse every booth in the festival. Most people come in and they start at the top and then they go down row by row by row and then come to the emerging artist, or they make the emerging artist first and then go row by row by row. So if you have a booth in the emerging artist section, pretty well guaranteed to have all of these people come by your booth at some point. The artists in the emerging artist program are presenting and selling their work. So the past couple of years, we don't ask about artist sales, so I can't promise you exactly what all of the artists do, but I can say that the emerging artists, almost all of them they all make sales like of prints and that sort of stuff. But I would say last year, I think all of them at least sold at least a couple of individual or original pieces. So they do, it's typically works out quite well financially as well for the emerging artists. That's obviously not a guarantee. We can't say what's going to happen with that. But it usually works out pretty well for the artists. So not only do they maybe have their first show and get the exposure with all these different people, but typically they make a sale. A lot of them is taking commissions. So we always tell people, make sure you have a notebook so people can write down their information, collect all of this stuff. Make sure you have business cards, take all these things, different ways to connect with people, if not on festival weekend, thereafter. And we've had artists, who take commissions on festival weekend and then create these relationships for later on. And all of that stuff is covered in various parts of the mentoring program, so that we're reminding you, if you have a website, add a QR code, all these kind of different ways you can connect with people and make sure that that they can find you if they're not ready to make a purchase on festival weekend.
And when they do make sales, do you require a cut of the sales, or is the?
Not at all. Not at all. It's all for the artists.
I'm consistently awed and amazed every year that Gasparilla Festival of the Arts does this mentorship, does this huge festival, and you're an all-volunteer organization, so efficiently run and so taking care of artists in this community. It would seem like an impossibility in any other city, but you're doing it.
For 56 years. This is our 56th year. And we have an amazing team of volunteers, our board of directors. We have about 50 people on the festival committee who make all of this happen. And then on festival weekend, about another 300 volunteers come out and just just help out in those 2 days. So we are just incredibly lucky to have a very dedicated and talented team to make all this happen.
Who here has been to the festival before? Good, at least you people. And that was a great segue, because John, how do you pronounce your last name again? Is it
Shuffle.
Shuffle, like shuffleboard.
Shuffle. Well,
Shuffle.
shuffle me.
Shuffle, okay. He's one on the board, and do you want to share a little extra?
Oh, I was just gonna add something, so, we have each year there's one award winner for emerging artists, they get a $1,500 prize, and they're automatically in the next year's festival if they apply. But I also wanted to add that we have a great, track record of several artists, from the Emerging Artists Program who will apply the next year and actually get jury into the festival.
And many of them have been consistently in the festival for several years.
Yeah, I can add some specifics to that, because I'm a little bit of a neurotic when it comes to paying attention to these numbers and whatnot. The past 3 years, again, totally not a guarantee, but the past 3 years of the emerging artists who apply the next year, half of them have gotten it. So, like, 2024, maybe we have 6, 3 of them were invited to the main show of the festival. So that typically is that's the numbers, what it's looked like over the past few years. But people who, emerging artists who finish the program and then the next year they apply, they typically, about half of them will get in. And if they keep applying, chances are they will have a good chance to show up in the festival and the main show later on also.
Fantastic.
Do we ask questions at the end, or?
Go ahead and ask a question.
Oh, okay. So I'm wondering, Francesca, nice to meet you. I'm wondering, how are you guys building a community in Tampa? Because it sounds like you are open to the whole country.
Yes.
And that your intention to be a national show. So how does that balance with working with the local community, and is that a priority for GFA?
Oh, absolutely it is.
Okay.
So the Emerging Artists Program, like you're saying, it is open nationwide. And so is our main show too, it's open nationwide. The Gasparilla Arts as an organization, we have different programs. At the festival, we have our local artist spotlight that invites 5 artists who are obviously from the Tampa Bay area to participate. We also have a remote studio program, which is another 5 artists who are
Remote
in
studio?
remote studios, yeah. And those are artists who come out and set up at the festival and complete, do their work at the festival, invite the passers-by, the festival visitors to talk about their creative process, that sort of stuff. And that's just on festival weekend, those 2 parts. Beyond that, Gasparilla Arts also is expanding quite a bit over the past few years to do more in the community than we have in the past. We have a pretty robust public art program. We're actually finishing a mural just this week, which is in East Tampa, and that's a local artist who's working on that named Michelle Sawyer. We have another public art piece that will be, I don't want to say anything about the schedule because it's going to happen, I just don't know what it is yet. But within the year, we're going to have another public art piece come up. And we participate in other parts of the art community in area events such as this kind of thing right here. Different kind of stuff we try to get involved in different places, in different ways around the community that we support artists. There's always more that can be done, absolutely, but we're making an effort to expand beyond just the 2 days of the festival and to involve local artists as much as we can.
And we also have our scholarship program, there's a collegiate scholarship program that's local, and we award 5 $3,000 scholarships each year.
Every June?
Pardon?
Every June you do that?
Every year.
Okay.
So that application will be open, probably in early January and due probably mid-March, and then the ceremony will be.
Yeah, and also on the website, it's worth looking out to the economic impact of the actual festival itself to the local economy. And Tracy, I don't want to put you on the spot, so just think about this because I'll call you in a minute. But I would love to hear your feedback of what it's like working with people who have had a chance to go through that program. I'm thinking specifically of Aaron Titus. I know you've had met a couple of other folks that have been in that program and then want to come into a gallery setting. How does it feel to work with them? Are they ready for that kind of opportunity? How does that kind of contribute to what you do? What's the synergy there? Do you want to have a moment to think about it?
I can answer it.
Okay.
So, it's interesting to hear about the fact that you guys are having a workshop about the festival artists, because it is a really different, I feel like it's a very different skill set. But as far as working with some of the artists that were either emerging artists or local artists, like Libby Ponce came through Tempest and through USF, and then she was one of the artists that was, I think it was an emerging artist. I think Libby kind of struggled with like the transition to doing a festival booth, but I feel like it's a good experience for all artists. It's good for craftsmen, it's good for people who are looking for a fine arts gallery experience, just to sort of run the gamut and learn all of those skills. But I think it really comes down to preparing yourself for professionalism. And it doesn't matter if you're preparing yourself to be in a gallery or in a booth or even have an online shop. It is about having your resume, having your website, having your business cards, and knowing how to make your work look finished. And so I can say that the artists that I've worked with that have been in the festival, they didn't have that skill set when they went in. They definitely had that skill set when they came out. And I think it's very beneficial to have that experience.
Thank you. And you, perfect segue, because you mentioned the local artists program, which is another great aspect to connect with Clay and John on, but that's also something that the Gobia Foundation initiated and has really nurtured over the years. So it's a wonderful segue to talk with John. We'll start with you first to tell us about the microgrant program and other grants from the Gobia Foundation and what you look for as a grant maker.
So glad to be here and to share about the microgrant program. So I'm going to read our official goals and stuff, and then we'll deep dive into it. And I'm not going to read this paper the whole time, but it helps me make sure I cover all the points that I want to cover. But our microgrant program is to enhance the cultural landscape of the Tampa Bay area through small grants that encourage and make possible publicly accessible art projects and events. And really our goal is to have more events happen that, and we focus it on Hillsborough and Pinellas County, so that's the regional area. And they're small grants, they're $500 grants or less. And it's really spurred from the idea of an artist who either has some work produced or needs the last bit of supplies for a project, or just needs that additional funding to push them over into actually having that event, right? So it's like, it's not to totally fund a whole line of work or a whole, it's really just to get you over that finish line into having something public for Hillsborough and Pinellas County people to attend. So who is eligible? Artists, curators, all ages. We have had a recipient as young as 17. You can receive the grant one time per year. So we have 4 cycles throughout the year. You can get it in one of the 4 cycles for the year. Let's see, so I said 4 cycles, 4 grants, so that's 16 grants per year that we fund. So it is to be a new in-person event, and this is one of those gray areas of like, how do you define a new event? The goal is to have the artist, the event, to bring out the local audience to something that has been generated this year, right? So a lot of questions that we get are, this is a reoccurring event, it's not new. Well, if it's a reoccurring event, but the art that's being shown is new, it's new artists, new work, then it can be eligible. And it would be up to the reviewers to define, like, you know, do they find it new enough, right? And I'll get to our review panel in just a minute. Let's see, so I mentioned Hillsborough, Pinellas County. The artist does not have to live in Hillsborough, Pinellas County, the event. So this is an event-based grant. So the event has to happen in Hillsborough, Pinellas County. Again, getting back to the idea of we want more artist events in our area, Hillsborough, Pinellas. The artist can live wherever. And the event has to start in Tampa. So the new part of it has to happen in Hillsborough, Pinellas, but it could travel somewhere else. So like in the application, it might be like, well, I'm looking for the $500 for the event to happen at Tempest Projects, but it's also going to happen in Tallahassee at this other location a month later, right? But it has to start here and be new here in Hillsborough, Pinellas County. There's also some other like eligibility things. Everything that I'm talking about is on our website, and I highly recommend if you're getting flyers that you look at that, especially the timeline. So our next due date is December 1st. That would be for projects that happen February 1st through July 31st. So it's the 6 months after the recipient is announced, is when the project would happen. Due date December 1st. It takes us a couple months to get our review panel to look at everything and then make a decision. All right, so as far as how you apply, the application is a short online application. We have a resource on our website that is essentially a Word document. The Word document is exactly what's in the online portal that you have to go into, but you can type in your answers there and then cut and paste from that Word document into the portal so that you don't have to, like I hate getting in the middle of an application and be like, oh, I didn't know they were gonna ask this, and now I gotta go, you know, shut down and go and find the answer. So it gives you a chance to, you can flesh out your answers in advance of going into that portal to actually make the application. Neil and I are not allowed to make the decision on who receives the grant. It's a part of the IRS, is to make sure we're not just giving the grant out to our family members and our friends. This is for the community, right? We're a nonprofit. So we have a review panel. We typically, the lowest number of reviewers is like 5 or 6. We've had up to 14, 15 on our review panel. And it's a 2-part process for our review panel. They do what I just referenced, the online part. They evaluate each application online on their own as an individual reviewer. We tally those results. You're going to hear my measurement brain as I talk about this process, okay? So those questions that the reviewers respond to, there's a numerical value, and we tally those. And that data then is presented to our review panel when we meet. And we meet typically on Zoom, and that's the starting point for our discussion, right? Those numerical values give us like a like a baseline of like, okay, so the majority of you rated this project really high, and let's compare that to this other one that you rated similarly. Let's talk through, right? So it's a starting point for the discussion. Neil and I facilitate that discussion by getting back to the reviewers make the final decision on that, in that meeting that we have on Zoom. Just as feedback, this information is also online, but the scoring is weighted heavier towards the creative part of the project. What we care about most is that this is a good creative project. The logistics have less weight. The I'm blanking on the third section, but it's 50% is the creative, right? And we did that purposely. We were very purposeful. We took our goals for our program. All of our application questions are related to those goals. And then that review panel, those questions that they're answering are directly tied to the application questions and to the goals. And we have a whole called. It's an alignment table where it shows you how you trace back from like, what was our goal, creativity, what questions were you asked as an applicant, what questions were the reviewers asked to answer about that content area, that goal. Let's see. Yeah.
The evaluation questions and the alignment table are also available to anyone applying on the website.
Yeah,
So that's
that
not,
makes
we
sense.
don't keep, we're very transparent about what you're, so you know exactly what the reviewers are gonna be asked, as well as what you're getting asked.
So let me give an example about the alignment here. So where it's an event-based project, we want the public engaged at your project, right? So you as an applicant would answer questions about describing your project, right? And we specifically say, in our question about your project, you know, how is the audience going to interact with your artwork? And then we ask the evaluators to, you know, I'm not using exact phrasing, but essentially, is this project going to bring audience members more understanding of this artwork or something? You know, like, are they interacting with it, you know? And so that's why we're saying, like, everything is tied together so that hopefully our goals are being met by who's getting funded.
Question, so because it's event focused, does that mean that the projects don't always have to focus on a visual art component? It can be literary arts,
Right.
performing arts.
Right, so we have lots of you're like feeding in, like you're like, I know it's not just visual. Yeah, so we have a wide variety of arts. Neil has some stats on it, but the majority are visual arts. Performing arts, those two dominate. We've had literary arts. You know, so it's event-based, but it could be a launch party for a CD. It could be a launch party for a book release. It, you know, so it's, the event is highlighting the artwork. But, you know, literary, obviously, it could be a poetry reading, it could be a book reading as well. And then, as just the last bit about the whole process, we do have a short post-event form. So if you receive the grant, then there's a very short form, and that's really just so that we can be accountable to the IRS and, you know, have some documentation that the person who said got the grant got the grant. So that's really all that it is. It's meant to be short and sweet. And then I do have some notes about application advice. I don't know if we want that now or not necessarily specific to our application, but in general. And just a plug for one of our recipients at the Tampa Theater tomorrow night. There's a 7 p.m. free screening of Celebrating Muslim Women, Movies, Monologues, and Music. So that's tomorrow night at Tampa Theater. Our recipients.
We're gonna come back to you on the tips for grants. That is very, very important. I want to hear more about what that's like, and Kathy too, on receiving grants. Yes.
I have a question. Can you talk a bit about your review panel? Is it different each time? And what type of people make up the review panel?
I'm so glad you asked that, because the other thing is we're always looking for reviewers, and we typically recruit for the beginning of the year. So we're in cycle 4, December 1st is cycle 4. Cycle 1 is due March 1st. So we would need our new set of reviewers by March 1st, or the 26, 27 year, kind of, 26. But everybody who receives the grant, we offer for you to become a reviewer. So anybody who receives the grant can come and join and be the review team. I also highly recommend anybody who's interested in applying, you can apply, you can be a reviewer before applying. So like, if you know you want to apply for cycle 3 next year, you can be a reviewer for cycle 1 and cycle 2. So, you know, just to understand what it's going to be like. Our review panel is made up of artists, curators, leaders in the arts, and what else did you ask about the panel? Did that cover most of it?
Does it change each time?
Oh, and so we typically recruit at the beginning of the year, and at that time, people will tell us, I can do all 4 cycles, or I can only do 2 cycles. This year, we've pretty much had the same reviewers all year. I think that there was only one person who signed up for only 2 cycles. But we've had other years where it's like, you know, it's hard to get, like we had the same 5 throughout, but then we had 2 or 3 that you know, maneuvered around, if that makes sense. But yeah, if anybody is interested in being a reviewer, please let us know. We'll be glad to have you.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to learn. I think that was the second time I had a chance to be a reviewer, and I learned so much. And I have to acknowledge your research skills, because the matrix is so, I have never seen, in the reviews I've done since, it's really, really fantastic the way that they weight applications and the intention. I don't want to say seriousness of it, but the intention and the respect that they put into these grants, because they really want to make sure that it's sparking new opportunities for the public and for artists. So speaking of, it's nice to have like a tag team. Can you share, Neil, about some of the impact of this micro? Like, why is it important? What has it sparked in the community, and what do you enjoy about?
Yeah, so I'll start with some history. So the microgrants, actually, we funded a microgrant program through another organization, it was Hampton Arts Management, and the founder of that organization left the Tampa area, and the organization went away. But that was in 2017, something like that, 2018, it's a while ago. No, it's earlier than that even.
It's on my slide.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. So it was called the Think Small to Think Big. And that was our first kind of foray into the microgrant program. We had talked about trying to do something similar, and then we met with Hampton and came up with it, and he was really excited by the idea, and so he managed the program. And from that, we really saw the impact we could have. One of the recipients of that was a band. They turned it into a release party. That turned into something else and something else. They wrote this letter, and it was just how this $500 became something so much bigger, and had such a bigger impact on their career and as a band, and what they were able to accomplish. And so since then, we then learned after that we could do this as a foundation. For the longest time, we were under the impression that we couldn't give to individuals at all. We had to give to 501c3s. Then we learned at a philanthropy conference that no, we could, we just had to go through this extensive, onerous process with the IRS to get approval for the program. And that's why there's all these rules that we have to have in place, is because otherwise they can come back and say you're violating that and threaten us with whatever. So we're very strict and very diligent about keeping those rules in place. And so once we set that up, that we went through, that process took at least a couple of years. And actually finished, and we were gonna launch it literally the first meeting, we took in the applications, and the first review was gonna happen in March of 2019. So obviously, everything was a public event, or March 2020, sorry, being a public event, that wasn't gonna happen. So we put it on hold until things opened up again, and then our first actual grant making cycle for the program was cycle 4 of 2021. So that'd be the applications of December of 2021 were our first microgrant applications. So yeah, since then, we have, I think there's been, I looked up these stats today, so there's 60 applications, 60 grants that have been given out to date. We've had, I think it's, I have the numbers, it's like over 90 applications total. I think it's over, maybe it's more than that, maybe it's 90 applicants total, something like that. And then, but of those, it's wonderful when we hear these stories of this similar experience to that band, where, you know, we had one who was someone who had a show at the Tampa Bay Theater Festival that turned into someone who was handed the program from someone else, then invited them to do a solo showcase of the show somewhere else. So it's this one event that happened turned into other things happening. There's a couple other examples of that, but that's the one that comes to mind right now. The biggest one, I think, that was the most. There was some others though. Why did I forget these also? Anyhow, so yeah, but it really is. It's like John is saying. It's the idea. This is the money to be a catalyst to make things happen. And that catalyst can often turn into something bigger. If not, as at least an experience, the person learns something from it, and they can take those lessons and continue on with their career. And public also gets to enjoy it. You know, we started this, John grew up here. She has brothers that are artists. I've been here now for 30 years. And one of the things that was very obvious when I first got here was the lack of opportunities that were happening. And so what we're trying to do is help create those opportunities through this funding. You know, there's spaces like Tempest that have been here for 16 years. There's other spaces that have come and gone that were like Tempest. There's numerous theater companies that have come and gone. And a lot of it comes to just not having somewhere to do it or not being able to have the money to make it happen. And so sometimes it's just, when you have a little bit of money, you can get a little more, or you have a little more and it's not quite enough. Well, that's where this microgrant comes in. We like to think that it's very approachable. It's a very simple application. I want to put this in comparison to other grant opportunities. I mean, it's not just tell us what you're going to do. It's a little more than that, but that's essentially the gist. Is what is it? Where is it? When is it? Who's going to attend? And who are you? That's kind of the overall what it is. And so we ran the application. We talked to multiple artists who looked at it before we actually relaunched it after the pandemic. We met with some artists and had them look at it and give us their feedback, made some tweaks to it to make it more approachable.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it's on a cycle, like it's the same time every year. There's 4 different opportunities. So if you're going to be planning a public event anyway, why not match it up to the cycle and apply? Because that $500 could really make your event special and kind of cover those hidden costs that pop up. And Jess, I don't mind if I put you on the spot, but if we haven't met yet, if you haven't met Jessica Todd, she's fantastic. I met her through this space. She was one of the founding galleries in the Crest Building, Parachute Gallery, and I actually met her through the Go-Be-Offs because they nurture so much talent on so many different levels. And you received a grant from your gallery. Do you want to share what that was like or how it helped out?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Neil and John are amazing and have done so much for this arts community. And yeah, I had an idea for an exhibition and I wanted to do some kind of concurrent community programming with it. And so I was running my gallery, little gallery over there on my own dime. And it was really hard to like help artists with shipping and all the install fees and all the stuff. And so I applied for the grant and got it, and it just helped me put the show together, and it was a really great show I'm really proud of. And the legacy of that lives on. I got to introduce some national artists to people in Tampa who still kind of follow them, and build those relationships with those artists, which helps me in my curatorial endeavors going forward. So it was a really important, impactful thing for me. And then I served on the panel as well, which I think is just really so thoughtfully put together, such a range of people on the panel. I think you guys do a really good job of bringing in like so many different voices, just like and the really interesting thing about the panel, I think, is that it typically when you jury something, you're not like having a discussion with the other jurors, you're just scoring and then the top people get in. But bringing everybody together to kind of discuss things really helps us, because sometimes there's a project that one of us scored lower for whatever reason, and then someone else is like, brings up a point about it that you're like, oh yeah, like that's really true, I would love to see that. But I think my perspective from the panel and advice to anybody who wants to apply is, first of all, take a careful look at like the deadlines and when the project needs to happen, because it is a little bit confusing, but if you take a second, it's easy to figure out. And then just really, I think the point is to express your enthusiasm for what you're doing, how you think it's gonna impact the community, like, just bring your excitement through the project. It doesn't need to sound like a thesis paper, like, we wanna understand there's a range of people on the board, so you're not writing like an academic, you know, grant application. It's like, you want people to understand what you're doing, you want them to be able to picture in their head what you're doing. Supplemental images help. There's the option to do a video, which I think is a great way to like really just like show how enthusiastic you are about it. And I think to the point of disciplines, if there is a discipline that you're seeing like, oh, I haven't seen a lot of writing projects get funded, that is actually an advantage, because then like something I could see being set on a board is like, oh, we don't see a lot of writing projects. I would love to see this come to life. So like, don't be discouraged if you don't see your exact medium or your exact kind of project. I think that's actually an opportunity to like add some diversity.
Yeah.
I also want to add that, you know, feel free to reach out to us if you're unsure about whether something fits a certain category or if it's eligible before you apply. So you don't take all this time to put together an application when you find it's not eligible, which does happen, unfortunately, because there are things that aren't eligible, and we list them on the website. So just like markets and festivals, that's not what we're trying to do here. That's a valid thing. Everyone needs. I encourage everyone to apply for those and take those opportunities, but that's not the purpose of this grant. So reach out first, you know, but be aware. Email is the best way to reach us. It is just us, the whole foundation. So we don't have another board, we don't have staff answering emails, so it may take us a little bit to get back to you, but we try to, when it's an applicant, we try to make it a priority.
There's two things that I'd like to quickly point out that Jeff mentioned. One is, you know, we actually were able to, you know, it's a small grant, it's $500, we're realistic about that. And we don't expect it to be written like a development person. We expect it to be, you know, we don't expect, you know, completely great grammar. You know, it doesn't have to be that way. We even tell our reviewers, we're like, you know, ignore the spelling issues, ignore the grammar, like, what's the concept that they're presenting? That's what we want you to focus on. So we actually put that disclaimer out to our reviewers before they review the applications. The second thing is that I like that just brought up is, we try and provide you with multiple ways to show your interest in your project. So yes, there's a written portion of describe your project, but take your cell phone out and take a video of yourself describing your project. Like, show that enthusiasm. That's all we're expecting with that video. We're not expecting anything polished. And then the visuals, like, you know, if you have images to provide. You've got 3 different ways that you can show your enthusiasm and give examples of what you want to do.
Yeah, so the video is also helpful because we have, you know, so the breakdown of the art that's been awarded is most of it has been just over 50% has been visual art, but the next largest has been performance. And there's been dance and spoken word are probably the 2 largest in that area that have received grants. And so some of them, having the video when you're doing a performance piece is definitely helpful rather than just writing it down and showing photos. So that's another reason, and, you know, and if you have a website, you can add that too. So that's another way to help show what's going on.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up, there's such a diversity when it comes to grants and opportunities, the diversity of really understanding what the grant writers or grant makers want to see. So they've articulated, they want to see concept, they want to see energy, they want to see the rough cut, the messy, just bring it forward and do it, which is really fantastic. Also, we have grants that are designed to help train you for bigger, like for professional development, for being able to show up in a space and have your I's and T's crossed and all of that. I can't even, my brain doesn't think that way. I'm messy and I just want to do it. But it's such a beautiful skill to hone as an artist, the intention and the articulation of defining what you do and then communicating it. So I wanted to introduce again Martine, and with the Hillsborough County Arts Council, will you share a little bit about the professional development grant and why it's important?
And the Arts Council does a number of grants. The Professional Development for Artists grant is what we're talking about here tonight. And actually, actually, that's our oldest grant. That started in the early 90s, before any of the other grants began. Now, I know Chase is a former grant recipient. Has anyone else in the room received this grant before? Okay, well,
Not yet, at least.
You did?
I said not yet, at least.
Oh, I did not get it. That's okay, I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. But basically, it's pretty simple. This grant is it's $2,000, up to $2,000 for any artist for either an education experience, a training, a fellowship, or whatever, or a piece of equipment. And so you can only apply for one or the other, but what we are looking for is to find out how that will change the trajectory of your career if you get that piece of equipment. And so in terms of writing, it's a pretty simple grant application, but you really have to do a good job of convincing our grant panelists that this really will, that you are excited about this and this really will change your career. And it just so happens the grant panelists are the Arts Council board members, and we have Jane Simon, who just finished reviewing these grants, and also Michelle. So they are well acquainted with the process. We have a scoring rubric, so we encourage, when we do a grant application workshop, we encourage everyone to be familiar with that. Now, if you're here for an immediate grant application, I'm sorry to tell you, we've already given out our 26 grants. We're government, so we have to get that before the end of the next fiscal year. But in July, we will open it up for 2027, and that's the month the application will be open in 2026. And we do an application workshop, and please, if you're a first-time applicant, come to this. Kathy Collins, sitting right there, does it. She goes through the whole process. I'm there to answer questions. But the more you know at that point, the more your time spent on this is going to be worth it. And if you're first time, either for this grant or any other grant, we really want to give you that opportunity. This opportunity is open to emerging artists, established artists, anyone at any point of their career, and it's open to any kind of artist. We've had stage managers, we've had different types of musicians, we've got, I would say the majority is typically visual artists, but we're getting more and more different disciplines, I think, don't you think, Kathy? Just recently, which is exciting, so that we're reaching out further. Because there's no opportunity for this particular grant right now, I wanted to make all of you aware, because there are 6 regional arts organizations in the country funded by the NEA the way the state ones are. And South Arts is the one for Florida, and they have an artist creative practice grant, which, much like our grant, supports a variety of professional development opportunities, including activities that will likely lead to a better career for the artists establishing their career. Those grants are up to $3,000, and they are available between, the grant period is between November 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026. And the application is open right now. It closes April 30th. They have a rotating schedule, so I didn't want to come here and tell you about our grant that you can't even apply for right now without telling you about something else that you can apply for. And if you applied and you didn't get it, I have a great story about that, because we had someone, he was a literary artist, this was maybe 8 years ago, and the first time he applied, he didn't get it. But we counseled him, and he got more lessons, and he did it. And he applied a second time, and he didn't get it. And I think anybody else would have given up, and he applied the third time, and he had gotten so much knowledge on grant writing, he just refused to give up, and he got it. And what's most exciting about that, he's applied for a national fellowship, and I had to write a letter of recommendation for him in September, due in September. And he said, do you need any help from me about what to write? I know, I said, tenacity, not giving up. I mean, he was our champion of all time. So really, this, if you're new to it, don't be discouraged if you don't get it the first time, but we will help you afterwards and say, okay, you could do better at this. We do the grant workshop, and we think that's very helpful as well. But if you haven't done a grant before, it is kind of new territory. But if you're totally new to grant writing, typically it's good to start at the local level. With us, if you're looking for public funding, with the GoBeOffs, start at the local level, and as you build your skills, then you can move more into, other grants outside. There are a lot of arts grants, national arts grants, but I wouldn't recommend jumping into that until you sort of kind of climb the ropes a little bit, and we are happy to help you do that. As far as the impact of this grant, I cannot believe it's been around so long. So I was doing a board orientation for a new board member a few years ago who had just retired from the Ringling College of Art and Design. And I always go over our grants with the board members. And she looked at me and she said, you don't have to tell me about that grant, this grant. I applied for this grant 28 years ago, whatever. And she said, I asked for a computer. I didn't know how to use a computer. You gave me a computer, and when I applied for the job at Ringling College, where she spent the rest of her career, she said, without that computer, I wouldn't have gotten that job. And then I've also run into people like at concerts and things like that come over and said, I got that grant, this one musician, and he said, this was transformative, it did this. That's what we want to hear. But if you're doing the application, make us see that in the future. And see that this is what's going to happen. See that you're passionate about this, and that will help a lot. You do have to be a Hillsborough County resident. You have to show a year having lived here. You really can't leave town until the grant period's over, because we're looking to fund artists that will give back to the community. And if you move someplace else, we're not getting the full benefit of the funding. And there are a few other restrictions. We've got the handout, but I encourage, don't be shy, and we will talk to you about it, but it's really a pretty easy entry-level grant. So we will help you with it, and we encourage, but if you're not on our mailing list, get on our mailing list so we can remind you of this. But also, but July is when this is opening up, next July. But if you're interested in the South Arts, they also have fellowships and things, some of which the deadlines have gone past, but it would be good to look at. And this is, I'm thinking about this because the NEA celebrated its 60th anniversary in September of this year. And when it first started and funding was going out, there were so many opportunities for individual artists. They funded exhibitions, they funded all sorts of things, actual artworks, commissioning artworks. And then in 1989-90, Robert Mapplethorpe, they funded Robert Mapplethorpe posthumously, and it was so scandalous, and it just went all over politics. We called it the cultural wars at the time, and as a result, they stopped funding. Nobody wanted to fund individual artists, and they fund organizations. But what came out of that was, here is a way we can fund them. We can fund them for a profession, something that will help them without directly putting our fingerprint on the art that they produce. So that's why our grant is much like South Arts, much like the Creative Pinellas Artist Grant. This was like a reaction to all of that. But it's still valid. For a while, nobody was funding. So it's really great. And the Arts Council of Hillsborough County was one of the first that got on this bandwagon after that controversy. So, there's a nice history behind this grant, so we hope you'll apply.
Just gonna give my two words of advice as somebody who reviews these things, as somebody who does this professionally. Don't start your first sentence with "I feel like." You're gonna lose everybody. Like, really make it about what you want to explore. Make it about why you became an artist. Make it a great first sentence. I would not use AI in this stuff. I would really stick to your voice, because I think that really matters. Even if it's simple, you don't have to fill out the whole thing. You don't have to use, if it says 500 words, you don't need to give us 499, 300. If it's great 300 words, fine. And look up the amounts. If you just apply for 2,000, we're gonna know you didn't do your homework. If you wanna buy a MacBook, go look up how much the MacBook is.
You
Just
do
do an
have to
Amazon-
put a link to the equipment or.
Just do an Amazon search and just figure it out. If you write $1,599 as opposed to the full 2,000, I'm gonna know you do it. A little bit extra. Look up how much a plane ticket is. Like, we had somebody apply this year who wanted a plane ticket, and I swear, she just guessed on how much it was. That's not how much a plane ticket costs. No, not anymore. Look up how much it is. We wanna know.
Yeah.
So, these are wonderful, and I just want to thank you so much as a taxpayer and as an artist.
I'm gonna walk over, I do better up close.
Now you're scaring me. But I just want to thank you for doing it, first of all, because we know the funding is dicier now than, of course, it always is, as you just mentioned. My question is a really pragmatic one. There's a bit of a chicken and egg thing going on, because you've got the schedule, which means, when you're granting and when you can apply and everything else. And then you've got the thing that you want. So, for example, a residency. I've applied for a residency. I would
Are
like
you the
some
person who asked
I
that
am.
question? Okay, because I'm prepared for it. And it is a matter of timing,
Okay.
because, but what
Yes.
you can do is, if you've actually applied for the residency, and
Which I don't know if I'm gonna get.
well, I understand that, but if you apply it and you've got a letter from them that they received that it's in process, you can always apply just in case, and if, in the time frame that the grant would fall into that particular residency. If you don't get the residency, there's no harm done, and guess what? You can, if you don't, you can apply the next year. Only people,
So
once
you
you
don't
get the
get-
grant, you can't apply for 3 years. But anybody else that doesn't get it, or the thing doesn't happen, or their plans change, they can apply the following. There's no harm done.
So if the thing doesn't happen, I just want to
You just tell
confirm.
us.
And you don't give me the money.
I don't give you money, but you aren't penalized.
Right.
But
Okay.
if it happens, you got the money.
I got the money, and then I can't apply for another 3 years.
And yes, and there's no harm done, because, we don't hold that against you. It's just keep us posted, and it happens all the time. People get pregnant, it just, and so we can deal with that. But that's the way you have to balance it. I'm sorry that the time span is so different, but we've run into that before. But I think we can manage it.
Okay.
Yeah, and on that note, after we're run out of time, but get with Chase. Chase did get the award, and we were talking about earlier how you have to wait 3 years to reapply again. But I love the fact that you're always on top of things, Chase. You're always looking to see what's out there, what's available, and building your business that way. You worked with everyone here at Gasparilla, you worked with the Go, So please take your time to pick his brain if you're open to that.
Of course.
And then also I wanted to introduce Kathy. Do you mind share 2 minutes real quick, some really key things about grant writing? Okay,
So-
and then we'll wrap it up.
Specifically as to the Arts Council grant,
Yes.
remember, it is a reimbursement-based grant. So if you don't spend the money, you don't get the money, but you also have to spend the money to get the money. There are a lot of people who, once they apply, say, where's the money? Well, you're not getting it until the grant funding period and until you actually get what you said you're gonna get. So my pet peeve is spelling and grammar. I hate seeing misspelling. We put the application online, you can copy it off, you can print it, you can look at it, it won't, typically change a lot. I may tweak something here and there each year, but what we're looking for you to do is tell us your story. How is what you are asking for going to advance your career as an artist? So if you want a MacBook, tell me why you need a MacBook. Tell me how it's going to make a difference to you. If you're a photographer, please remember it is about your career as an artist, not your career as a professional artist or as a professional photographer. I want to know, what is it going to do for you that's going to somehow highlight and make better photography? The other thing is, the questions that are posed to you are very deliberate. Some people may think, oh, they're asking the same question over and over again. No, we're not. If you read it, you're going to see there is a reason behind why we ask what we ask. We want to elicit the information from you. So don't do your answer, never do a grant application in haste, never wait till the last minute. Print it out, think about it, check spelling, check grammar, and check your word count, because we use one that has the word count. It doesn't have the character count. No, it has a character count. It's a character count, not a word count. So if you do it in Word and you put the character in, you can paste it into the online thing. Spaces count, so you have to just kind of take that into consideration. But again, I think with respect to the Hillsborough County one, you also have to be cognizant of eligibility, because you don't want to start this application and then realize, well, I haven't lived here for a year, I can't show that I've been here for a year, or I got this application 2 years ago, I didn't wait the full 3 years. It's spelled out very clearly in the eligibility, and all of that is online, including the scoring rubric, so you can see what the reviewers are looking for. All we do at the Arts Council is we check the eligibility, and then if we determine it to be eligible, we move it on to the reviewers who make the ultimate decision. And again, because this is taxpayer money, it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, which is why it is very important that you tell us the story, answer the questions, be mindful of what you are requesting. So if you want a computer or you want a professional development, you have to explain how it's going to make a difference.
Thank you. I've had so much fun working with you because you are so precise. That's your lawyer background.
And if you get a grant, you're answering her job.
Yeah, it's great training. Tracy?
I just wanted to make a comment about the Hillsborough County grants, or any grants in general. And you guys may have said this, but if you did, I missed it because I was kind of keeping an eye on the rest of the building too. If you apply for, especially I feel like this is about the Hillsborough County grant and the state grant, you have an opportunity as an applicant to listen in on the grant review and to be present for when they're asking questions. That is one of the most informative experiences you can have as somebody who is applying for a grant. It's not always informative in a good way. And I've been on every side of the process. I've sat on a panel, I've been a reviewer, I'm always applying as a gallerist and running a nonprofit. And I have had experiences where I have written, it is a perfect grant. And then you're listening to like the 6 or 7 reviewers and they're like, they get me, they get me, they get me. That person clearly did not read the whole grant. That person gets me. That person did not read the whole grant. You learn more about how they're reviewed when you go into that process. And the grant review is so important. I don't know if you guys talked about that, but when you apply, definitely sit in on the review because it's so important. It's so important.
I will say one thing. So we're not actually allowed to talk about it among the reviewers for Hillsborough County, which makes it a little hard because if I miss something, I miss it, even though another reviewer might get it. But I will tell you one thing I do is I don't make my judgments until I've looked at everything, and I go back in another sitting to make sure that it's not just me that day, whatever, that I'm really seeing we had one last cycle, happened to be a voice artist, and it was just wonderful. And you could just hear what she wanted to do. It was really simple, actually.
But, you know, this stuff sticks in our minds and we hopefully don't, it's not just like, oh, we do it in a hurry. I spend two to three times where I have to go through everything because you deserve it. You put time in, I'm gonna put the time in, right?
Yes, it is a wonderful learning experience, though, listening to people's comments, and, sometimes just because you never forget about what you did as well. So, I know that a lot of people do skip the grant review, because they've been on the call listening in, and they're like, no, it's not here. I'm like, how could they not be here? So, that's my 2 cents. Always attend a grant review if you can.
Chase, did you find the application did you have a good experience or?
I did, even though I accidentally applied 2 years, my bad. She was calling me out on that. It was a total accident though. But yes, it's easier. What I was gonna say is, is it possible for people to log into the Zoom for when you guys are doing the grant? I know you did
The application?
after the application, but during the grant process, when you're reviewing each one, I know we had a Zoom, and we were on the Zoom and you gave out like the scores for each one. Would that be possible to log in for somebody who is applying now?
I think they're only available for a short period of time.
Okay,
I don't think they exist like.
okay.
And exchange information, and we had, just wrapping up, we also had a question about, is it advantageous to go for national, international grants? Absolutely. But one of the things I want to emphasize so much is that when you're working locally, you have the great opportunity to build relationships, which actually gives you a better shot because, and speaking of the Arts Council grant, sometimes we get stuff that comes in and I've experienced their work and they didn't communicate it as well necessarily because they're not professional grant writers, but I can recall what it was like working with them and seeing their quality of work and let that influence a little bit the application and the measuring and all of that. You have a wonderful opportunity and a really supportive community here. And that was the whole reason why we wanted to get together, because there's all sorts of conversation. Martina, I love that you gave context to the culture wars that keep happening every other decade, to not get too caught up on that and to really source into your community and look for opportunities, because there's a lot here. So thank you so much for your time. I have just 2 quick announcements at the start. November 17th on Monday night, there's a digital sign district conversation that's going to be with the Tampa Downtown Partnership. We've been working with them at the Arts Alliance to make sure that if we do a digital sign district in downtown, that we have at least 20% of the time and airspace goes to local art. And there may be a public art component. So if you're interested in that kind of conversation, come to the Portico. I'll put that in the recap email. It's the 17th, Monday night at 5 p.m. You can hear more about that. The Now on View opportunity has been extended. There's a flyer downstairs. That's been extended until I think the 16th. So another great opportunity funded by the Arts Council. It's Now on View. It's a local festival here in Ybor City. It's at 3 spots at HCC, and they're the ones that produce it over here at the Crest and over at the Hotel Haya. And they choose, I think it's 11 artists, or is it 8? I think it's 8 this year.
8 this year is fewer artists, more money.
Yes, $16.50. That's a pretty decent,
Yeah, that's a good chunk of change.
to activate, and then it's a really great opportunity. There's a flyer right downstairs. And then lastly, the Hillsborough County Neighborhood Grant, that's still up. Paul Messia did that last year. It's a $5,000 grant, and what they did was an arts pop-up. So you can go to your neighborhood association in Ybor, in Tampa Heights, in South Tampa, and say, look, let's put on a pop-up, apply for the grant, and maybe you have $5,000 to do some kind of neighborhood activation. Again, so many resources. Reach out to your community. Thank you so much for being here. Eileen, thank you so much for everything you do. Hillsborough County Arts Council, be sure to be here as well. Thank you to everybody.
That's why